Although you've worked hard to complete your manuscript, it can still be a struggle to get the attention of a publishing house. The majority of houses won't accept it unless it comes through a literary agent.
But landing an agent and finding the right one for you also requires effort. Where should you put that effort? Well, here to share an insider's perspective is Wendy Sherman, owner of Wendy Sherman Associates Literary Management. Wendy, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
One of the things that we would like to start with is the beginning process for the authors themselves, which is, of course, the submission guidelines. Other than doing the obvious, which is to read them and follow them, is there something that authors could do to stand out?
I think the best thing is to be very concise and to lead with your lead and not bury something at the end of the query letter that maybe would have helped us to pay attention to it right from the start. Tell us what we really need to know to want to read more.
So start with the most important thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
What are some of the top mistakes that writers make when sending in a query?
It's a great question. There are a lot. Some of them are really obvious things, like sending a query to a particular agent that's addressed to a different agent. So it's sort of, you didn't do your homework, you weren't careful. The idea that you want to personalize something, and if you're going to refer to a book of mine that I sold by a client of mine, don't mention someone I've never heard of, because it was probably intended for another agent, and then I know that.
Good, yes.
Exactly. So I think it's important to be, recognizing that you want to be selling one book. You may have 3 books that you think are worth getting published, but I only want to hear about one. So you need to be the one to decide which is that one that we should take a look at.
So this is maybe the second time I'm hearing we want to try to keep it streamlined.
Streamlined.
Go to the most important thing first and just one thing at a time.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I know another big concern these days is authors and having a platform online. There's so many different options and so many ways. Is there a way that authors could maybe make sure that the agent knows where they're going with that?
Well, I think, if you have great numbers in terms of your social media following, if you have great Twitter numbers, or if you have a very strong Instagram or Facebook fans, obviously you want to list that. But if you have a great platform, put it out there. If you don't, it's not the end of the world. We don't expect every author to have a strong platform going out of the gate.
Okay.
Now, once you've been contacted an agent, what are the steps that you should expect thereafter with the writer? What do they expect from you, that relationship?
Once we've actually signed a client, you mean?
Yes.
Well, at that point, we're really in it together. Then we're a team. It's a total collaboration. I want what's good for you is good for me. And I'm very careful to guide my clients in terms of what the next steps are with revision, getting a proposal in shape. I think we finished a 6th or 7th revision of a proposal over the weekend that will be going out to publishers next week. And at no point did this author say, I want to be done, I'm tired of revising. She just kept going back and making it sharper and better and being receptive to the comments that I was making, even to the point of being willing to change the title.
Wow, that's actually a pretty big deal.
It's a process.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it takes as long as it takes, and it's not ready until it's ready.
Okay. So if the agent has indicated that they're very interested in the work and you've begun that relationship, I'm assuming there may have been a few times where the relationship went sour. Is there something, okay. Again, our show is for authors out there. Is there something you could advise them to avoid doing once you've established a good relationship?
Yeah, there aren't too many cases like that, I'm happy to say.
Okay.
Once in a while, if we start working out together and sending the material out to publishers and we don't get a response right away, sometimes people will say, maybe I'm just going to self-publish it, and they pull it back. And surprisingly, that disappoints me, because I might be willing to keep trying and continue to try to find a place to put the manuscript. It doesn't have to be with one of the top 5 publishers. There are a lot of really great publishers out there that are not the big 5, and that would probably do a better job with your particular book than one of the publishers that are only looking for bestsellers.
Right. Plus, you've already invested your own time and energy.
Exactly.
You don't want to lose that yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. And sometimes we do recommend self-publishing or one of the hybrid publishers, and then it's not to get rid of the material, it's to really help you find a place to get it out there.
Okay.
Are there a lot of revisions that you see once you've signed with a writer and you've got their manuscript? Now, are there a lot of revisions that you suggest? Do you do the revisions? Do you send them to someone else to do those revisions?
All of the above.
Okay.
Sometimes we do sort of an overarching big picture edit and we suggest making changes.
Okay.
If it still feels to me like it needs a more hands-on approach, something that's sort of beyond the purview of what the agency can provide, we work with many wonderful freelance editors who, I would say most of them at one point were employed by major publishers, but
Okay,
for whatever
I see.
reason are no longer working there.
Sure.
And they can be hired for a very reasonable price to get the manuscript in really polished, top polished shape. And if someone can afford to do that, it's really a worthwhile investment because
I've heard many things about
Yeah.
the importance of a good editor.
it's really great because when we send it out to the actual editors at the publishing houses, they're expecting it to be pretty almost done.
Yeah,
you know,
close.
they're still going to edit
Close.
it, but if an editor has to say to me, it needs a lot of work, they're
That's a
probably
no.
not going to be making me an offer.
Sure, so it's so much extra
So,
work for them.
exactly.
So your agency does maybe the first level of editing, and if it needs a bit more work, then you recommend they go outside.
Exactly. I mean, would I love it if it came in perfect? Sure, of course I would. Well, the other thing that happens is sometimes we'll send something out and we'll send it to 3 or 4 editors who we work very closely with. And they'll come back and they'll make comments about it. And I'll go back to the author and say, you know, I'm hearing this from people. I'm hearing the same thing from 3 or 4 different very trusted senior level people.
Yeah, that should
I
ring a
think
bell.
maybe we should step back and take another look at it. So the truth is, until it's sold,
Right.
it's not done. And even when it's sold, it's not done.
Well, and before we go, what other ways do you interact with a writer? Are there other things besides the editing process that you continue to work with a writer after you've signed them?
Forever. I mean, it's a really long-term, very deep relationship because we're involved in everything from, preparing the material to selling it, negotiating the deal on the contract, and long after the book is published, we're still involved.
So
I
there's
mean,
a lot of communication.
Oh, yes. This week we've been sort of hashing it out with a publisher over a jacket design, over a book tour.
Wow.
These things go on because the relationship is a partnership between the
Sure.
publisher, the editor, and the agent and the writer, and every step of the way we all are involved in it. So I think the idea that an agent makes a sale and then their job is over is completely incorrect.
I think it's very important for people to also realize that agents are there to be the voice for the author.
That's
it's
very
not,
true.
It's not somebody that authors are supposed to fight against, but they're supposed to be a team together.
That's very true. Sometimes we have to be the good cop, and sometimes we have to be the bad cop.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. I know that some people definitely learned some things.
Oh,
This
good.
has been very helpful.
Great. Thank you.
Appreciate your
Thank you.
time.
All right. Take care.